Another conversation about metaphysics, I shouldn't wonder. Just because there's just too much. So
Yeah. I'm audio only for right now, at least. I have my setup set up, so
yeah,
I
you're
can
fine. No rush.
But yep.
Yep, no rush at all.
At some point in time, whenever I'm working here, we really should just have a like just one of our in-depth conversations on something.
Yeah.
Uh, while I'm moving around and working, and you're doing whatever.
Exactly. We should. Oh, I need one of
Because
those too.
that's where the real cool stuff happens.
When we're just
Is
talking.
whenever we're just talking and we get like deeply into the weeds somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Does there
that's
need
that's the cool stuff.
does there need to be yet another Poets at Worst spinoff that is us Nox unplugging?
I'm not opposed to this at all in any way, shape, or form. That sounds great.
I'd have to think of a name, but yeah, it's doable.
Yeah. Well, would we start by going through the stuff that we've already talked about?
I mean, we could, or we could just see.
The first episode, Nephilim, nuclear fusion. Hear me out.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm. That's a thing.
Yes.
Is that the most off the wall thing you've heard me talk about?
It's either that or the royal family conspiracy theory.
More people hold that one than the Nephilim nuclear fusion.
I'm more convinced. Say what?
A lot more people hold that one than the nuclear fusion Nephilim one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I just as far as unhinged or just like completely off the wall stuff goes, yeah, those two are the standout ones, and I think that the
well, with Charles looking like Red Death in his recent portrait, just saying.
Yeah, Charles is a really good argument. Charles is a really good argument for the royal family is controlled by demons. But his mom was a really good argument against it.
Right.
So,
or was she?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I hear you.
That's just the one that I'm completely unsure on.
Right.
And so, because I'm completely unsure, like, have not been swayed from the center at all with
right,
it.
and I'm not actually.
I find it significantly less tinged than the nuclear fusion one.
Well, like, and I'm not swayed necessarily by the argument specifically. I'm saying if there is a global cabal somewhere,
it's the royal family.
Exactly.
That's fair enough.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Thank you.
That's fair. I would buy that. If there is a if there is a large global conspiracy, it's probably the royal family is probably involved somehow. I can buy that.
Yep.
I still don't understand exactly how you work that into the whole Princess Diana stuff, but
oh, it's doable. That's like saying you can't work conspiracy into JFK's assassination.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I know it's doable. I just don't know how it. I just haven't heard it.
Right.
That's all I'm saying there. Not that like it probably adds more fuel to the fire rather than taking any away. But I just haven't heard it done yet.
Right. Neither have I.
So, yep.
If I got creative enough, it could happen.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, did you look very far at the family tree yet?
Yes, I looked at all the photos. Because it's just. I think I looked at all the photos.
Yeah.
So I think I looked at all of them. They look great.
Yep.
They look fantastic. I think the moving from the artistic one that you had critiques of to the No nails.
I'm not I'm not fully moving away from the more artistic style. I like the artistic style for actually like on my website, but for the sake of brainstorming and world building, I like them realistic.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that was a good move for what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, ready?
Were you going to tell me something before I said that?
No.
Okay.
Don't think so.
Yeah, no, and I saw Arthur Meadowlark, which is Braden's maternal grandfather. I was like, yes, that's him. Because I've been having a hard time racking my brain figuring out what he would look like, because he has a pretty unique blend of more Eastern European, but I wanted him to have red hair as well. And so like making it still feel Eastern European with it with red hair was kind of tough, but I like it was the first set of generations. I was like, whoa, okay, that's him.
Cool. Glad that came easier.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, that
go ahead.
Having AI to be able to do that is so helpful.
Oh yeah. Well, especially because I'm sitting here going like, I'm trying to blend literal faces and family features through a family tree. It's not easy. Yeah. I mean, it's easier when you've got something as wide as Braden, right? But like trying to kind of weave them through and see what this mix would look like with this mix and all that, all down to him. I'm like, yeah, kind of hard. So,
yep.
Oh boy.
Yep. Okay, so since we're recording and Brendan's not here, do we want to just like talk about Dub and all the stuff that went down there?
Why not?
Again?
I mean, you have more to say than I do.
We already talked about it, but it's not recorded.
Sure, yeah, we can talk about it, and like I said, you have more to say than I do, but I can bring in the fact that I'll bring it up to begin with. Marcus Pittman did make a really good point that they're becoming more and more like youth pastor at a mega church. the presentations.
Ooh. Apple?
Yeah. Especially with Tim Cook and what's his name, the hair helmet guy,
Craig Federighi.
Yeah. He's saying that they're super cringe, and most of their presenters, just in the way they present, feels super cringe. And I would agree. The technology is why I'm there, not all this other nonsense.
Disagree.
Okay.
I think that the more fun, for lack of a better term, presentation style is a good thing. I think that it. Okay.
Well, it doesn't need to be serious, but you know, like the jokes are really lame.
I chuckled several times. Like
I did too, but not for the right reasons.
I found the hair track pro stuff to be very funny.
Okay.
Like I did. I find it to be funny. It is zany, off the wall humor, and it feels very Apple to me. Because even if it's weird and kooky, it feels like them. Because they've always been white background, Bauhaus design with super colorful stuff.
Right.
And the presentations feel very colorful. Also, I have also watched the presentations, like the old Dubs and the old September events after Steve Jobs passed away. And none of them could do what Jobs did.
Right.
Because Jobs owned the keynote. Like, he is the master. He was, is, and forevermore shall be the master of the keynote. He's so good at it. His ability to enthrall an audience with, like, just technical documentation. Like the original iMac event, whenever he's launching it and saying, like, a power PC chip is rated by the Bytemarks uh, test bench to be twice as fast as a Pentium 2. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of deep technical jargon, and he just makes it so listenable. I was listening
Right.
to the iMac presentation, like literally earlier today after we got off the phone, and he's so good at it. It makes me up. I wish I was as good at presentations as he is. But literally nobody else is.
We
And so
just have you give more presentations.
good.
Because I feel like I can present pretty decently. I'm not like the best, but I'm decent because we had to do presentations like every week in classical conversations.
I'm looking for my phone.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
not in here.
definitely.
It's somewhere out there.
But Tim Cook, Phil Schiller, Craig Federighi, even Johnny Ive, whenever he was up in the keynotes, because I think that he was at one. I think that he was on stage during the Apple Watch launch event in 2014. I think
Mhm.
that was.
Right.
Yeah, 2014, because this will be the 10th year of the Apple Watch. But they just did not have Jobs' presence, and they were trying to have Jobs' presence, and they just failed at it. And so I think the new stuff, while it is more, like, I see what Pittman is saying about it feeling very youthful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a lot better than trying to mimic Steve Jobs, because
The
they just can't do it. They can do that. They
right.
own their style.
Yes, but the question is effectiveness toward user base over time. I think that we're at a point where that style isn't going to, that particular incarnation of the Apple style isn't going to last very long.
Fair enough. I could see that.
If they continue with that particular aesthetic, the hair helmet, goofy old guys, for 2 more years, I could see people talking about Apple products are toys.
Then they'll just release another $800 set of wheels.
Right. And then everyone will say, toys. And then they come back. I know there's a cycle to this. I know that. I'm just saying, like, they do change the cycle. And this part of the cycle is very youth pastor. And yeah, it's not going to hurt Apple. That's not what I'm arguing. Not ultimately. It'll hurt them in the short term, but like not the short term now. The short term meaning 2 years from now, right? So
yeah, maybe.
Anyway, yeah, just an observation. But beyond that, you wanted to get to the fun stuff we were talking about.
Yeah. So once again, to the listening audience, we have already talked about this, and so this will probably be a lot of rehashing. And so if I don't cover anything, that's fine. But Apple had their yearly Worldwide Developers Conference last Monday, and it was a just crazy, amazing event that they were revealed was even cooler. They jumped into AI for the first time, and they jumped in with a very, very Apple flair to it, which is, of course, what everybody was expecting them to do. Just walked into the house, by the way, so if you hear children screaming and yelling as though they are being tortured, that's just their normal mode.
Don't worry, they are. No, anyway.
Yes.
Don't worry, they are. I checked.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Anyway.
But their big advantage over every other AI business including Microsoft, including Google, including the cringy AI startups that were trying to get venture capital funding recently, like Humane and Rabbit, is that they are working. Their AI angle is something that they're calling personal intelligence, which Apple alone can do because they have been not gathering, but they have been having you put all of your personal data onto their platform and then backing that up with, we're big on security, we will guard your privacy, all of that.
Right.
So they have the cache that Microsoft does not, because how many security breaches has Microsoft had?
Right.
So many. Apple doesn't get breached because as much of their stuff is on device as possible.
Right.
So that's what Apple is bringing, and that is super, super cool, especially for the vision of technology going forward in the future, even past this, because their emphasis on making sure that everything is on device or not everything, but as much as possible is on device, is so refreshing whenever everything else that has been happening in the world of AI and the world of technology in general has been going to move to the cloud.
Right.
Move to the cloud, compute offline. You are going to it's the World Economic Forum stuff of you are going to own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy.
Yep.
Applied to computers. You're going to own like
a what? And we lost him for a moment. We'll see when he comes back, but I'm just going to continue by saying one of the things that I have really enjoyed is on my Mac. I just found this out today. I can run a whole bunch of iOS and iPadOS apps on my Mac. And so LumaFusion, which is a fantastic video editor, which is for the iPad primarily, is now available and has been apparently for a little while. I just didn't know it, for the Mac M1. Are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, I was just telling them how people who will be listening in the future, killing dead air, that I have LumaFusion on my Mac now. Apparently, because of the whole M1 being able to do some iOS and iPadOS apps, I can use LumaFusion. So I'm going to be slowly switching over because it is actually cross-platform to everything, I think, but Windows. It goes to Android, it goes to iOS, it goes to iPadOS, it goes to M1. So I will be able to use it in pretty much any case, and I think they eventually will get a Windows app. But anyway, it's and cool. I can send the projects with all of the original media in one file between devices. Fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah. So awesome. Was just pointing out that one little thing, but you can continue where you left off. You said something to the effect of you were talking about Apple and how they, it's refreshing. Everything else in the world of AI is, and then you cut out.
Everything else in the world of AI is moving to cloud computing. Right. Move as much as possible to the cloud. And basically, it's the World Economic Forum of own nothing, eat bugs, be happy. Applied to
they were
computers.
mad about what you were saying.
The bare minimum processor to run a computer, run a screen, run a monitor, and an internet connection, and that's all you need. Thank you very much. Go get your bugs now.
Right.
And Apple's not been doing that. Apple has been criticized greatly for Apple has been criticized greatly for their just massively over-engineered iPads, because iPadOS is just not up to snuff with the hardware that they have there.
Yeah, not yet.
Which is fair. entirely fair criticism, but at the same time, they're dropping this fantastic hardware because this has always been their plan. They've been working on putting so everybody else calls it an NPU, but Apple calls it a ANE. So NPU stands for Neural Processing Engine or Neural Processing Unit. And the Apple brand for it is, what was it? Apple Neural Engine, I think. And Apple has been building that into their processors, into their A series SoCs since 2017, I think, with the iPhone 10. I think it was the first one to have an ANE on it.
I think that's right.
And so, as far as that goes, whenever they launched it, it was just, look, we have portrait mode. We can, not super effectively, but somewhat effectively, depending on the subject and the lighting and all that type of stuff, block out the background and make it look like it actually has depth of field. That's what they use the neural engine for.
Yep.
And then they slowly, last year decided, okay, this is also going to be used for spell checking and autocorrect. And so Apple's autocorrect went from the worst in the business to one of the best in the business, because if you happen to be messaging your friend a lot about the movie Dune, they will figure out, oh, whenever he types ATR, he's going to type Atreides.
Right.
Which is just super simple AI workloads. Or technically, not AI. Technically, it's machine learning, which is what Apple has always said. They've never said AI, even whenever it became a buzzword back in, 2022?
Do you find it really funny that after the Apple event, people like Linus Tech Tips are making videos now saying the messaging of machine learning and like algorithms, and we're going back to that instead of like, this is the Terminator. Like, this is when guys like Linus who know this stuff are deciding to talk about it now, when Apple steps out and takes the brunt of it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of silly.
Fantastic.
I think it's kind of silly. Like, people have been holding back as far as that's concerned. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, come on, guys.
Attention, creative soldiers of the mind. Fall back briefly for a commercial respite.
Now is the time for your book recommendation minute with Alexander Robertson, the part of the show where Alexander Robertson comes out and recommends a book.
I was at the Fight Laugh Feast conference recently, and I picked up this gem from the Noggin Nose booth, where I was lucky enough to meet with the author. I expected that I would enjoy it. It was Doug Wilson's Book of the Month a while ago, but I did not anticipate exactly how fantastic it would be. However, before I continue with my praise, I probably ought to explain what exactly this book is. The Thing is a collection of 5 stories by Rivers Houseal. The subtitle is Short Stories of Things and the People That They Encounter, and it very much lives up to the promise of that subtitle. Each story is based around a meeting of thing and person and the events which follow. From a typewriter being found in the middle of the road by an aspiring writer, to a deformed potato found by a soldieress in the Women's Land Army amidst World War II, each story is beautifully crafted in every facet. The characters are believable to the point where I was convinced I had met many of them, and the form of the short story is so very well suited to these tales. It is a relatively rare thing for a book or story of any form to bring a tear to my eye, but multiple stories in this collection did. The themes of God's grace and sovereignty resonate very deeply with me, and the skill with which Miss Houseal works beautifies these themes and raises them to a level of glory which I have very rarely seen. This book is absolutely marvelous, and I recommend it heartily to everyone who has a taste for stories of any form. I'm certain that nobody will be disappointed. In my part of the world, at least, to see a typewriter sitting in the middle of the road is not normal. But if I have learned one thing, it is that odd things do happen, and there it sat. Furthermore, I was raised to know that when one spies a typewriter in trouble, one rescues it. So I did. Excerpt from Of When a Typewriter Was Found, the first story in this collection.
Attention all Christian writers and creative peoples! Are you searching for a place to share your work and receive encouragement from fellow wordsmiths? Look no further than the Broodcast. Inspired by the legendary Inklings of old, a group of writers who banded together during the Second Great War. The Broodcast is your monthly gathering for inspiration, fellowship, and critique. Join us as we share our stories and support our fellow soldiers on our creative missions. Enlist in the Broodcast community today at joshuadavidling.com/brood. Travel cyberspace. Serve the greatest cause. Join the ranks of the Brood today. Soldiers, reclaim your positions. We've emerged unscathed from the commercial onslaught to continue our noble quest on Poets at War.
Okay, so let me just make sure that I'm being clear about what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm criticizing Linus and others for waiting for Apple to tell the truth.
To tell the truth about what? The move from everybody using the word AI?
About AI being, in Linus's own words, AI is a lie.
Yes.
It's marketing jargon.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Once again, we've talked about this for at least a year and a half at this point. I don't remember when our insane conversation on blockchain and AI happened, but we've talked about this for at least a year and a half.
It was like the third version of Midjourney was coming out, and everyone was like, "Ugh." So
okay, so we can figure out exactly when it was, but I think it was about a year and a half ago,
something like that.
And like, I've been saying this. This is what I've been saying. It's not proper AI. It's not general. What is it? Artificial general intelligence.
Right.
Is the term, which is what everybody thinks whenever they hear AI. It's machine learning.
Right.
And that is that messaging is so much more clear than AI. And AI became the buzzword, and Apple never followed.
I like the term autocomplete on steroids.
I absolutely believe that that's your preferred term.
Yep.
Yeah, autocomplete on steroids is exactly what it is. That is a very good way to explain to a layman what machine learning is.
Right.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. And it's so much better messaging than just AI. And Apple's never said AI. Like, famously, Apple said AI for the first time last month.
Right.
March? No, not last month. 2 months ago. End of March, via iPad event. The first time they said artificial intelligence or AI in one of their events was the launch of the M4 iPad Pro.
Yep.
Everything else has been, machine learning or neural processing. And then this, at WWDC, they dropped they said artificial intelligence once, and then they rebranded it to Apple Intelligence, which I think is a great move, focused on personal intelligence, and still loaded the front half of their presentation with, this is machine learning, this is neural processing, this is all of that. So
right.
They were keeping the same messaging that they've always had, and I think that was a brilliant move on their part.
Yeah. Absolutely. There was a lot of clarification there for lay people. My problem is, like I said, the people who are not lay people, who understand this stuff, who are techies, who just now feel like they can come out and tell the truth.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts. Because they know the truth.
Yeah, that's pretty annoying. But like, I've been yelling the truth to anyone who would listen, and those who wouldn't, as Debbie just said, about AI and machine learning for a while now. So I've been saying that, but I'm also not Linus Tactics.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, but there's been a couple people who have said it. I think Quinn from Snazzy Labs has talked about that a fair bit, because he's done some stuff on like other companies' AI and then compared it to Apple and said, nah, this is not really AI. Apple's closer to right with machine learning. So, yeah, because I know I got it somewhere. I didn't come up with this stuff out of my own head. Lord knows.
I mean, you got some of it from me.
Yeah,
Shadiversity was saying stuff.
Yeah, Shadiversity. Yep. But I had this language in my head before I started talking with you about it.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. The two other things were the calculator was turned into math notes, which was very interesting. Not something I have particular use for, but it is an excellent leap forward as far as calculator technology. And then the other is specifically, what's it called? I call them team viewery things. It's stuff that you can do through a
SharePlay.
Yeah, exactly. It's
SharePlay.
Yeah, and being able to share more between devices and be able to control an iPad from an iPad kind of a thing, and all those other sorts of stuff that are really going to add more functionality, but it's stuff that they have streamlined in such a way that they're happy with it now and it's not janky.
Yes.
And this is the Apple thing. This is the Apple way. There's certain places where I'm like, let me live on the bleeding edge, and other places where I'm like, no, I just want it to work. And, you know, when it comes to just being able to talk between devices that I own, it is nice to just have it work. But yeah,
and that's even nicer whenever you're in the Apple ecosystem and you have not just an iPhone and an iPad, but a Mac and an Apple Watch and AirPods and all that type of stuff.
Right.
Because there's not a more seamless experience than using Apple's watch with Apple's headphones, with Apple's phone, with Apple's computer.
Without Apple's seamless Pod, because that was a pain. iTunes is a pain, no matter how you slice it. Sorry. Sorry.
I'm gonna defend iTunes for 1 second because I still use iTunes for Windows.
You don't need to.
It's very good. It's very good if you just want to drop all of your CDs there and you never connect your computer to the internet. Which is what I do.
But there's a million other programs that can just rip CDs no problem and dump them in anyway.
Yeah. But none of them work with the iPod. Sorry, I love my iPod Classic. I am absolutely an Apple fan.
Is Guardians of Atlanta on your iPod?
But I do love it. So
is Guardians of Atlanta on your iPod?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I have not. Yeah, it's sitting on my shelf right now. I'm going to move it over whenever I find the time to. But as we said, busy week and just weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to do some graphic editing because I put in The Princess and the Frog as the title on the graphic, and I'm just gonna put like a big X and an Apple logo or something. And
that's a great idea.
Then I guess we could just kind of have a grab bag between you and me, because like as great as Princess and the Frog is, and I really want to talk about it, I want Brendan here. I want the whole show.
Exactly.
And for those for those who are listening and wondering, Brendan had a car emergency. They're dealing with it. He might pop in later. We'll see. Things have just been nuts this month, and so Alex and I decided to talk about what we want to talk about. I think why not go ahead and I guess this is as good a time as any for you, since you're kind of on a hype train, to talk about one of your other hype trains, and that is Guardians of Atlanta, while I reset and think about what else we can talk about.
Yeah, sure. As far as ideas for what else we can talk about, we could talk about the generative stuff that Apple introduced as well, and how that could or could not be useful for artists, more so than like the tools that we currently have.
Back to the art stuff.
In the meantime, Guardians of Atlanta. So, I'm assuming that at least some of the people listening have seen Guardians of Atlanta. or heard about Guardians of Atlanta from the show in the past, but it's Joshua's epic poetry series, 112
12.
poems?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 112 poems that tell the origin story of a superhero team set in the South, obviously, Guardians of Atlanta. And it is so good. I got to write the foreword for it for the ebook and audiobook that was just published by Joshua, both the WordPress, all that fun stuff. But it's really so good. Joshua's reading is on point for the audiobook. It's on Audible, right? It's on all platforms now.
It's currently on, I'm gonna pull it up just so I can tell you. But
okay.
It takes a while to drip everything out because all these retailers have to pick it up from what's it called? Findaway Voices, which is owned by Spotify. It goes to just about everywhere. It is currently available on Kobo Walmart, which is it used to be just Kobo. Walmart bought them out. Anyway, Nook, which is Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Libro.fm, Storytel, audiobooks.com, and Hoopla, which is a library rental service thing. So anyone who wants to check it out there, you can check it out there. Yeah, there's like 3 different apps for libraries that it has been submitted to. So it's not on Audible yet. I do have physical audiobooks on my website, joshuadavidling.com as well. I'm selling those through eBay right now. It's the easiest way for me to ship it out to you. And
they're very, very cool. It's like a trading card case with a micro SD card holder added to it. They're really fantastic. You did a good job on them.
And even if you just want to stream and have a physical copy, there is a QR code with a password to my website where you can go in and stream the audio and just have a physical copy for the apocalypse or whatever. The non-existent, not really apocalypse because we're post-mill here. But anyway, short-term apocalypse, maybe. Little A apocalypse, maybe. Not the big A.
Nuclear apocalypse, not the end of all things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk generative, and we're gonna beat this drum.
I'm actually
let's beat
wanting
this
to
drum again.
Get more, I'm wanting to get more of your thoughts on the specific Apple way that they did generative, and how useful or not useful you think it will be to artists, specifically writers. Because you've got the 3. I think there were 3 major things that they said as far as generative. They had the image playground stuff. They had the Genmoji, which is not something that's going to help writers, I assume. And then they had their built into their UI, like, I don't remember what it was called, but basically where it will generate text or rewrite text or anything like that.
Right.
So what's your thought as an artist as to how helpful or not helpful those will be?
It really depends on the artist, and how adaptive they are to new toys and tools. I think that the precedent of baking it into the OS is actually the most important thing here, because that is something that you're not going to be able to get away from, and they're going to have to make it in such a way that it doesn't annoy the person, but actually helps them. This is one of those things where the best of the best survived the 2D to 3D animation apocalypse. And the best of the best did one of 2 things. They adapted, or they became the absolute best 2D animators ever.
Yeah. Glenn Keane.
And right. Glenn Keane was more of the second side, but he did learn some 3D.
He did. He directed a Netflix original movie with Philippa Sue from Hamilton, and oh my word, it's so good.
He is a just excellent storyteller and actor, you know. Dude's amazing. But the thing is, the 2D to 3D thing, they either adapted or they became the best at what they did. There were some who just stuck to their guns, and that's all they do, and that's all they're known for, and that's fine. And there are people who are fantastic acoustic guitarists, and electric didn't run them out of business. There are people who are incredible sequencing musicians that can't play a live set, and then there are one-man bands. Like, we have a giant spectrum of things that exist in music and in arts, and whatever path you want to take now more than ever is available to you as an artist.
Yeah.
So Apple baking this stuff in to the OS sets the precedent for one day having a version of Final Cut on your iPad that has the ability to generate shots for your movie. That's where we're moving. There are already some companies that are trying to create full-fledged movie-making suites that include everything from score to voice to everything else. And they're expensive as all get out. But, like, it's really, truly moving into a space where even if you don't complete a final product that way, you can make a mock-up of an entire movie shot for shot and have it ready to go and just re-record it with all the nice fine detail of an orchestra and a cinema camera and all the rest, you know?
But basically, it's the exact opposite of what they did with Rango. You're familiar with that process at all?
Remind me. I am, but
okay,
remind me.
Rango, 2011 movie, I believe. I believe it won Best Animated Picture, but it was about it's a riff on the Western genre in animation, starring Johnny Depp, Isla Fisher, Abigail Breslin, Bill Nighy, just massive, massive cast. Great cast. But the gimmick that they had was that they had all of the actors do all of their stuff with actual cameras, just in like mock getup. So Johnny Depp had, his hat on and then a poncho, but he had just his plain clothes underneath. But they got all of the shots that they wanted with the actual actors. So it wasn't motion capture. What Johnny Depp coined it was emotion capture, because it gave the animators really good reference for exactly what the actors were doing.
Well, this goes back to Snow
What you're
White.
saying is
this
it's
is
the opposite of it.
Well, yes and no. Because there are people who do this with Lego, who do this with action figures. Walt did it with characters on a backlot in order to animate them, right? And so, yes, it is in one sense, but in another, it's not. It's really a whole other thing. It's not animation to film. It's something else to film, right? It's generative AI to film, whatever you want to call it. It's autocomplete to film. And so you can fine tune each and every one of those. You know, I remember Corridor Digital doing their thing not that long ago where they were taking stills and making animation, right? And they were having to interpolate and do all that kind of stuff. And we have this, even though it's not 100% there, the generative video from things like Sora and other stuff like that is absolutely mind-blowing. And the fact is, you can tell a story with it, right? You can get emotions across. Now, is it going to convince anyone? No. This is where things like Lord of the Rings are still head and shoulders above it, as far as things like, you know, the perspective of the hobbits and the wizard being the perfect size. I heard John Rhys Davies recently talking about this. He sat with Ian McKellen and Dailies for the first time with Ian McKellen and some others in Dailies, and they saw Frodo jump into Gandalf's arms. And they were absolutely flabbergasted at how amazing the filmmaking was to make that scale look real. And that it's such a
brilliant technique.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And these are the fine-tuned details that you're not just going. Here's the thing. As much as people are like, oh, they'll never reach the fine-tuned details, you could eventually. That's, you know, maybe 20 years off down the road. But the point is, the detail is not the wisdom to choose the right detail. Right. And not only that, come up with the story in the first place. There is so much more of an emphasis being placed now upon actual story idea generation, because this is the thing that AI actually can't do. It can synthesize other ideas, right? And that's what we do. We are remixing God's world, right? But there is something a whole lot more, because we see things in a whole different dimension. We see things when it comes to meaning. AI doesn't see meaning. What is it? Imagination is the organ of meaning, or vice versa, or something like that?
Imagination is the organ of meaning. C.S. Lewis.
Right. And so it doesn't have imagination. It has synthesis. But synthesis is a big chunk of what your imagination does. It's not the only thing it does. What is the term? There's something synthesis. What is that? And they're all
it's Hegelian dialectic. Is
and I know Hegel, but what is it? Like I know this term.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Right. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, which I know Hegel, but let's just pause for a second, because a squirrel finds a nut, every now and then, right? Whatever the phrase is. This is basically what he's saying. And this is story structure. This is the fabric of the universe, right? We've got something positive, something negative. They fight, and we get an outcome. Right?
Yep. And the outcome very often includes pieces of both.
Yes.
Not all the time, but very often.
Right. And I would argue that true synthesis has the ability to synthesize something out, the same way genes eventually have changed way beyond their originator. Right? So, point being that this good versus evil thing, it's not infinite. It's not something that can continue ad infinitum, right? Like the thesis antithesis cannot happen forever. We are actually moving toward a final thesis, so to speak.
Yeah,
that's real.
Yes.
Okay, and we believe that.
It's not a final synthesis.
Right.
It's not a merging, it's a final of two thesis things, because in the end there is God. Antithesis is not God. Thesis and antithesis are not equal and have never been equal.
Right.
One is ultimate.
Right.
The other is created.
Attention, valiant warriors of the imagination! Prepare for a temporary ceasefire as we navigate the commercial labyrinth!
I'm Ian Wilson, and I create graphic art using primarily traditional methods, supplementing with digital where it's needed. I use a real pen, a real paper, a real graphite to make my art. I like to feel my art. I've always been this way. I love the feeling of a pen or pencil in my hand, the sound of graphite scratching paper, and I love the sight of a nice black line making its way across the page. So why choose traditional art over digital? Traditional art has an organic, natural quality that seems to be missing from most digital illustrations. The illustrated books and comics that were made in the days before digital have an excellence and staying power that is just as vibrant now as it was decades ago. These are the stories that stay with you. Dr. Seuss, Winnie the Pooh, Where the Wild Things Are. People still read these. I'm currently working on my own graphic novel series, Legend of the Swordbearer, and I've also had the privilege to draw graphics for 2 motion comic series, along with illustrations for a small magazine, Logosophia magazine, and various book covers. Don't let traditional art fade into the dust. Help me keep it alive. You won't regret it. Visit my website at ianthomaswilson.com for more info.
Hello, I'm Sarah Levesque, Editor-in-Chief of Logosophia magazine. I would like to invite you to explore our Pilgrim's Journal of Life, Love, and Literature, both in visual format and in podcast format. Our goal is to help bridge the gaps between different Christian denominations and traditions. Please visit our website at logosophiamag.com to read or listen to stories, articles, poetry, and more, all for free. We look forward to journeying with you.
Soldiers, advance! We've emerged from the commercial abyss, ready to resume our mighty march on Poets at War.
And so we believe that, but this is ultimately my point: is your imagination is coming up with thesis, then antithesis, and then synthesis.
Yes.
All you have to do for a story now is thesis and potentially an antithesis, or at least a vague idea of an antithesis.
Mm-hmm.
Plug it into an autocomplete and get 30 ideas.
Yep.
Pick the best one as the new thesis. Come up with a better antithesis. Synthesize again. This is the process of creation, right? This is how we create as humans. I'm not going to speak to the mind of God on this, because God is different, but we're made in his image, so there's going to be some similarities. And so
how far those similarities go, we are not privy to.
No, not at all. But we are privy to of how he works in creation.
Uh-huh.
And even with animals interacting with one another, there's thesis, antithesis, synthesis. A cat starts eating food. Another cat comes up. They fight. One cat wins. That was exactly what I said. It's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Yeah.
And so this is my point. People act like there's all of us are going to lose jobs when we're sitting here in a prison where society has decided we only need a few theses and a few antitheses, whatever. And we mostly need syntheses. We need people to synthesize and keep busy and keep the world moving, as opposed to actually putting any sort of will onto the world, right?
Yep.
Whereas what does God say? Christians are to rule the new heavens and the new earth with him.
Yep.
Now, we're not there yet, but as the church,
Heavens
we are
no.
marching forward, and we're getting better year by year, generation by generation, by the Lord's goodness toward the goal. Now everyone goes, "Oh, look at today, horrible, whatever." Yeah, there's dips and valleys. I'm not.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're nowhere near the worst that we've been throughout human history.
I'm not practicing black magic.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not a warlord.
Well, I mean, according to the Independent Fundamentalist Separated Baptists, but we don't have to listen to them.
The AI's black magic.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I can find that sermon on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely, you can. Did you see the clip that I posted from the recent podcast where they were in the Bodleian Library?
No, I did not.
Did you see the Bodleian Library episode?
Not yet. I've been really behind on my podcast.
That's okay. You know what that is, right? The Bodleian Library. If I'm pronouncing
Bodleian
it right.
Library is in Oxford, right?
Yeah. You know it. Okay.
It's like the giant, amazing, gorgeous library.
Yeah. So they went there and they filmed an episode of podcast. So where they're walking around and talking. And Glenn had this really funny anecdote about a story of a merchant post Gutenberg leaving from leaving to Paris to bring Bibles, like Latin Bibles, for sale, because he was thinking, oh, the university, I love these, blah, blah, blah. And he got arrested and held for trial because specifically for witchcraft, because they couldn't believe this many Bibles could exist in any one place.
Yes, I'm familiar with that story. Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with now.
Yep.
This is AI.
And
that much synthesis can exist in one place.
Yes.
Unless it's an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah, give me chills. Yeah,
go ahead.
But just anyone, if you're okay with language, go to YouTube, watch Bo Burnham versus Jeff Bezos by CJ the X. There's a lot of language in it, but it's really interesting. It's at least food for thought, even if he's wrong on a lot of it. But no. The thing that I've been running into with artist friends, 1 second.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I should entertain people.
No, it's okay. I'm back.
Okay, he's back.
So the thing that I'm running into with several of my artist friends is that, and a bunch of artists that I'm seeing on YouTube, is that they seem not quite offended, but basically they're looking at it and saying, I am a master violinist. I have put ungodly amounts of hours into learning this craft. And I can now play it with absolute excellence. Or I have gone to college and learned, read all the stuff and have a college degree in writing. Or I have XYZ, gone through the stuff to learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And now anybody can do it by themselves, which makes them feel like they're just being completely outmoded.
Right.
And I get that. I really do get that. That must be a terrible thing to experience.
Well, I mean...
But,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean... Everyone has, throughout everything that I have looked into as far as art goes, everybody has always said, ideas are cheap and worthless. You must build your skills.
Right.
That's how you're going to do whatever it is. You must build your skills, because if you have an idea and you don't back it up, then you're never going to have anything.
All right, let's go Bible for a second.
And
hold on 1 sec. So back to the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, just to tie this together, and Bible specifically. What do we fight against in this world? Spiritual rulers, principalities,
principalities,
in high places. Powers. So this is a battle of ideas and spiritual beings. What has been the thing that they are trying to conserve for themselves, them being the bad guys, the bad spiritual beings and principalities and whoever else you want to call, what are the bad guys trying to conserve, right? Because yes, there is a progressive side that's trying to progressively change and pervert a culture, but what are they trying to conserve on their side?
Power, control.
What is power in the thesis, antithesis, synthesis triad? Which one is power?
It's both thesis and antithesis.
Yes. They have been gatekeeping the thesis and the antithesis and spreading the lie that you need to follow synthesis in order to be successful, because only a few run the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I am a giant nerd. I was just driving to go pick Debbie up from work, and was listening to the movie Steve Jobs in the background.
Right.
which I know that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Such a great
We've watched
movie.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But Woz has that line in Act 3 whenever he's asking Steve to acknowledge the Apple II team. Says, I don't think that there's a person in this room who has done more for the advancement of personal computing in the world than I have.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been the goal.
Right.
At least with Apple. Like, I don't think that was always the goal of Microsoft, because I think that Bill Gates is, I'm going to say generic evil.
Yes.
Not going to specifically say demonic or anything like that, because I wouldn't swear to that, but he's generically evil.
Yeah, sure.
But that's always been what Apple has been trying to do, is power to the people.
Right.
That's what the 1984 ad was about.
Right. But also power to Steve Jobs and everyone else. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad or good.
Yeah. Power to Steve Jobs, as he felt that he was a person.
Right.
And he was trying to, like, this is where he went wrong. He was trying to consolidate all the power to himself.
Right.
And that's what led to his problems.
Right.
It also led to the iPhone. So
exactly,
get some good, get some bad.
Mm-hmm.
But that is what that advancement of personal computing, that power to the people, is what is happening with AI.
Yes. And it wouldn't have happened with Steve Jobs.
Oh, no, it wouldn't have happened with Steve Jobs. It definitely wouldn't have. It most definitely wouldn't have. We would still have iPhones with 4-inch screens.
Right.
If Steve Jobs was still at home. I love Steve Jobs, and I love the vision that he built with Apple.
Right.
I think that he was in the truest sense of the word, a great man. Not necessarily a good man, but a great man. And he changed the world, I think, for the better.
Mm-hmm.
But his best achievement was building the foundation of Apple, and then by his untimely death, he let it go in a way that he never would have taken it, but is still in line with his philosophy of what a business should be.
Right.
And this is why, going back to where we started this, Apple's entry into AI is so important because it was so focused on the personal.
Yes.
Because it was, how does this help you? How does this assist you in your daily life? Not, how can you get this to write a novel? They don't have a chatbot feature.
Right.
It is, how can this help you? And that is what AI is. That's what you're saying. It is the ability to take the ideas that you have. You are the source of the ideas.
Right.
And then take your ideas and make it easier for you to incarnate them.
Right.
And nobody is doing that in as personal a way as Apple is.
From a user interface perspective, I would agree. I think that they have room for improvement for sure, but like they definitely
do.
Like you, one of the things I was telling you very initially when we started talking WWDC the first time, they have an overemphasis on individuality. They're starting to move toward more customizability, and that's part of the reason. But the other reason is because they have I was just looking this up. The reason I mentioned the Steve Jobs thing is not necessarily because he wanted things a certain way and he was going to get them a certain way, but I was looking to see when iCloud came out. And it was the same month that he died.
Yes. That was his last. That was his last Apple event.
Hey, look,
iCloud
it's
in
Brendan.
2011.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brendan.
Hello.
Hello, friend. How are you?
Yes, we can hear you. You're very low on my end.
That's okay.
I'm trying to be quiet.
That's fine.
Not
a problem. We opted to do an off the wall show because neither of us wanted to talk about Princess and the Frog without you. So we're just kind of talking right now, AI and Apple and other stuff. And yeah, I wanted to check in with you though. How's car and stuff? If you feel like talking about it on show, if not, don't worry about it and I'll cut it.
Give me a second.
Sure.
To make sure that's not the button. Where is the button? It's voice and video. Where's voice and video? All right.
Button. Who's got the button? Are you there?
I am. I don't know if he is, but I am still here.
Apparently he's not. Okay. There he comes back.
There we are. He's back.
1, 2.
I can hear you.
Of course. So I have these brand new earbuds that I can't do anything with. Just infuriating. Oh, whatever.
I gotcha.
Short version, he thinks that the car's battery blew. One of the cells exploded because of the heat that we're currently dealing with.
Oh no!
And so, wife got stranded. We called tow, got a tow, but we only have one car.
Yeah.
And I was at work, so there was all kinds of juggling. We had to get the car back towed to a place, and it was just a mess. It was a nightmare, and a lot of stuff happened. And now we are going to be sleeping at the parents' house because it's closer to my workplace. Here is closer to my work than home, and since we're probably going to have to be either chauffeured or borrow one of their cars, it just makes more sense to let them have access to it as well. It's just a pain in the butt. I'm very tired.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we'll be praying for that. Was there any further damage, do you know, besides the battery itself with the mini explosion?
Well, there wasn't an actual explosion. It was Tirith put it in reverse, and as it was reversing, she realized she couldn't turn the steering wheel, so she put it in drive and it wouldn't go forward.
Gotcha.
So she was in the middle of a parking lot.
Gotcha.
They managed to push it back into the space, and then they had to wait around for hours until my uncle could pick them up and I could get down there, and then the tow couldn't show up because it ended up being it's in 120 minutes, so like hour and a half to 2 hour wait, probably because other cars were dying from heat.
Right. I gotcha. Well, let's see. It's been an hour recording. I think that's good enough for the show. We can just chat, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Everybody be your families.
I do want to before you sign off, I do want to come back to what you were talking about as far as iCloud. At some point in time in the future. We don't have to now, but at some point in time
we'll get it on whatever our Knox we'll get it on whatever our Knox Unplugged show ends up being called. So we'll have an ongoing conversation. We're going to start doing something like Knox Unplugged, he and I, and we haven't decided what we're going to call it yet. So we'll talk about that. But anyway, we literally just decided on this podcast just because he wants to do that more, and I'm down. So anyway, everybody, be your family's bar. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time in the trenches on Poets at War.